I think that Bitcoin has not truly escaped its correlation with global risk assets. It might have recently have done quite well on this little bounce up from sub 16,000 to 24,000, but I do think we're in store for a correlation one moment. By that meaning that everything goes down massively together, Bitcoin including. Do I think it's going to break the lows of the FTX saga?
What's going on, everyone? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having an awesome day today as we gear up for a pretty crazy week for Bitcoin and for stocks as well. As you can see, we actually had the stock market just barely clinging on to the bottom of this level, and Bitcoin appears to be bottoming out, but you can see right here, we have put in a lower low than any of these previous lows right here. Now, there is something really interesting I do want to talk about on the Bitcoin chart. It has something to do with the Fibonacci levels. It could give us clues as to where Bitcoin could be heading, but at the same time, there's also something else that's going on right now, and that's the fact that we have these regulations, and you can see right here, the IMF and the US support India's plan to coordinate global crypto regulation at the G20. Now, India is currently holding the presidency at the G20, and India has not been very kind when it comes to cryptocurrencies. So I do want to talk about what this could potentially mean for us moving forward. And I also want to talk about Arthur Hayes. He's a crypto OG who recently came out in a discussion and was talking about how Bitcoin could potentially see another sell-off, but why this time is actually quite different, okay? Lots of different things we're gonna go over today. Make sure that you guys watch this video before the start of the week. If you're not subscribed, get subscribed. Let's dive in. Let's have a look. So obviously Bitcoin is still moving in this upwards, motion right here. And even though we have put in a lower low on the 4-hour, if we do look at the daily, we are still, in fact, putting in a higher high, right? So until Bitcoin falls below 21,480, which is also coinciding with this pivot right here, you can see that we did bounce off that very critical level. In fact, just to point it out, we had resistance here, acted as resistance, we came up, and then boom, it acted as support. And not only did it act as support, I want to show you something really incredible as well. For Bitcoin, you can see that once again, we did hit that level 25.3. We called this quite a long time ago. This was exactly the level that we were looking at. So major resistance here. Does that mean that Bitcoin is going to continue down and fill that CME futures gap? Well, we are technically, and it depends on what chart you're looking at. You could argue that it kind of looks like an ascending, broadening wedge, which might suggest that there could be that breakdown to the downside, and then we would break that structure. So make sure that you guys do get subscribed, and make sure that you check out the tutorial, because we are going to be going over some potential opportunities for trades depending on what could happen this next week. So if you guys want, check that out. There's $56,000 in bonuses, but let's have a look at what we're seeing right here. We are seeing the money flow on the daily start to kind of go sideways. The RSI is still relatively high, but if we come down here to this lower level, you can see that it is starting to fall, and we did get the first green dot right here, right? So if you actually longed, if you waited for that 4-hour confirmation on that, that actually was a good trade to take. But what we want to look is a confirmed setup to either side, because we did just start going into the red right now. So if you guys have been using Market Cipher, check it out. Awesome tool down in the description below. It really helps for these quick swing trades if you're interested. But I just wanted to point out something super quick, and then we're going to get to the news about what's going on with the US and the IMF. So if we actually take this from the top, right, and we're taking this Fibonacci retracement from, assuming that this is the top of the move, we don't know for sure, but if we do go from the top right here and we bring it all the way down to the bottom right here, you could actually see something crazy that starts to happen, right? Not only are we putting in this trend of higher highs and higher lows, but if you look at where Bitcoin has basically had all of these bounces, look at this, exactly right here on the point, excuse me, on the 0.236, right? Look at this bounce right here, exactly on the 0.5 right here, the 0.618 exactly. And now if you look at this level, even though we did fall below it, we are attempting to find support right here on the 0.786. So it is pretty incredible to actually see how Bitcoin has been doing this. And if you guys want to see something really cool, watch this. This is a little unconventional to do it this way, but if we actually start from the bottom and go to the top, right, assuming that we went this way, well, then you could basically argue that we're almost having a bit of a bounce right there. Right there, and we are sitting above it right here on this level. So kind of funny if you flip it. The levels are almost the same, to be honest with you. They really only kind of change at the top and bottom, but it does look like Bitcoin is continuing, and the fact that the S&P is clinging on for dear life down here, just barely closing above this level, and the fact that we've had the DXY having a massive pump off of this level right here, I would honestly say that Bitcoin is still holding up quite well. So that being said, what is going on with this news? Well, we have the International Monetary Fund, better known as the IMF, and the United States showing support for India's plan to coordinate global crypto regulation during this upcoming G20 meeting. Now, India, well, they ban it, they unban it, they ban it, they unban it, right? But ultimately, they've taken a relatively negative stance. Now, just to put the good news into perspective, we did have U.S. Secretary Treasury Janet Yellen saying, we haven't suggested outright banning of crypto activities, but it is critical to put in place a strong regulatory framework. We're working with other governments. So it sounds like thus far, it's pretty neutral to bullish in the sense of regulation, but they're not looking to ban it from the U.S. But the IMF is not feeling that way about it. The organization's managing director, Kristalina Georgieva, told reporters after co-chairing a meeting with Indian finance minister that crypto should be potentially banned as an option, or banning it should be an option. The Reserve Bank of India has long maintained a harsh stance towards digital assets, arguing that the nascent asset class has no underlying value. The central bank has constantly warned investors and governments against crypto, citing volatility as well as risks of fraud and scams. Now, again, this is why it would be bad if the US banned it. Because as you can see right here, India's controversial crypto tax plan, which includes a 30% tax on income from cryptocurrencies, have adversely impacted trading volumes on local cryptocurrency exchange. India's crypto traders have moved $3.8 billion in trading volume from local exchanges to international crypto platforms. So again, do you want the innovation to stay here, or do you want it to go somewhere else, right? That is the situation. Now, there was this big whale move that had a lot of people freaking out. Now, is this because of this G20? Because we did have Ethereum switching to proof of stake. I don't know. It's a lot of speculation. But in just the last 24 hours, we had 3 major Ethereum whales moving massive quantities. We had the first one moving 150 million to Binance. Then a little bit later, we had 40.5 million to Coinbase, and then another 24.3 million to Coinbase as well. And all of these were from unknown wallets. Now, is this because people are freaking out about whether or not Ether, is a security? Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that, it wasn't originally, but I don't know. Now that people are staking it, we've introduced that new layer of questionability. But I do want to give a shout out to Crypto Banter. This was a really awesome interview with Arthur Hayes. If you guys don't know Arthur, he is the originator of the first derivatives exchange, BitMEX, and he came on to talk about a few different things. He discussed whether or not what we're seeing right now is a crypto bubble or an echo chamber, and then he goes on to actually address the whole thing that we were talking about with the money flowing in from the East. So this is kind of why he said to take some caution potentially in the short term, but why then he flips and gets very bullish.
So, I mean, there's 2 schools of thought. The one school of thought is that, we're entering a new bull market, and we can go through what would potentially be driving this bull market. The other school of thought is that this is a little echo rally, an echo bubble rally, and, similar to, it's going to go up and it's going to come straight down. You're of the second school of thought. If I'm getting this right, you're saying that this little run from Bitcoin from 16,000 to 25,000 or wherever Bitcoin is now, is actually like an echo rally and is going to come back down at some point.
I think that Bitcoin has not truly escaped its correlation with global risk assets. It might have recently have done quite well on this little bounce from sub 16,000 to 24,000. But I do think we're in store for a correlation one moment. By that meaning that everything goes down massively together, Bitcoin including. Do I think it's going to break the lows of the FTX saga? No. Could it break 20,000? For sure. But I am looking for another leg down in Bitcoin to correspond with general risk markets. And then once that's finished, then I'm super bullish on the space, even if everything else is going to shit, because I believe in the response of what the monetary and fiscal authorities will do in another unpleasant situation. They'll hand out money to people and they'll print it.
And inevitably, they will turn on the money printers again. It's just a matter of when. But he does then go on to ask him about the fact that the Chinese have been injecting massive liquidity. And he actually had an interesting take on it, because he said it had more to do with the property and the housing markets, and that he didn't think as much would potentially flow in.
Oh, well, let's talk about handing out money to people and printing it. And I think let's talk about what's happening in China today. China is handing out money to printing and to people and printing and printing and printing. Japan, as we said at the beginning, is putting more money into the economy than they've put in a long time. They're taking emergency measures to put money into the economy. What do you think the effect of that is?
With China, it's a little unclear, because if you look at China, their issue is that they have essentially blown one of the biggest property bubbles in human history. Something like 20% of apartments are vacant in China, and most people's financial worth is tied up in some sort of real estate, whether that's individual people, corporates, the local governments below them. And so, Beijing realizes they can't continue this forever. They're debt to GDP is somewhere like 250 to 300%. They're reaching the capacity of the domestic Chinese economy to profitably absorb this debt. And what I mean by profitably is, if I invest 1 renminbi of debt, I get more than 1 renminbi of productive stuff after the life cycle of that debt. I think we long ago exhausted that sometime in 2008, 2010. And now they've just been, okay, well, we're on this road. People expect the property prices to go up. Everybody owns property. If we disappoint them, then we have issues, right? And so the Chinese government had the 3 lines policy starting, I think, in 2021 or whatever it was, which led to basically the bankruptcy of all the largest real estate developers. And then people were like, okay, wait, I shouldn't be buying these things anymore. I shouldn't be trusting that the developer is going to deliver this apartment on time. And now they've reversed course, right? Okay, Xi Jinping is saying to the PBOC, pump the money, make sure that the property market is stabilized. Right. So is the money just flowing out into the global economy to buy stuff? Possibly. Maybe there's some sort of capital flight out there, from rich Chinese people who now can travel, who are trying to get assets out. I don't know. I don't really have a good metric on that, but I wouldn't say that it's entirely evident that this capital is going to be exported, because they have such a dire need for things to prop up their property sector. And it's very hard for Chinese people onshore to buy Bitcoin, right? There's obviously emerging things going on in Hong Kong, and maybe there's a thesis out there that China is going to use its foreign savings in US dollars to sort of acquire Bitcoin to diversify. I put forward a theory about that in one of my articles, but I think at the end of the day that the Chinese liquidity will end up more probably in property sector and Chinese equities more so than crypto, because it is still very difficult onshore in China to buy crypto.
And finally, he discussed whether or not this is actually going to pump the crypto markets and how it's going to affect the dollar. But at the same time, and this is what I try to really explain, hopefully he'll go into it as well, is, when we're looking at the correlation of the DXY, we have to understand that it is a basket of currencies compared against the dollar, right? So if countries decide that they want to stop using the dollar, it actually may flip or at least decouple that Bitcoin stock correlation that's constantly always happening, although I do believe still right now it is happening, but there is a reason why it could eventually become less and less over time.
And it does feel like there's a lot of demand coming from the East. And I don't know if it's exactly China, because I think you correctly mentioned that it's harder to buy coins on the China mainland, although we know that a lot of trade is coming from there. But it does feel like China, Japan, Korea is leading the charge in this rally, right?
Well, I mean, it's on a macro standpoint. If you think about, like, what does Asia bloc really want to do? They want to de-dollarize, right? They don't want to. They trade a lot with each other. Why are they using the dollar for all this trade? Why are they saving? Why is Japan and China and South Korea and Taiwan and all these countries have all these massive amounts of dollars that they've saved over the years, because they've essentially exported stuff to the West? Um, and now they're trading more amongst each other. Do they need all these dollars anymore? Should they be diversifying into other financial assets? No, I think, and I think a derivative of that is what's going to happen with the individual person. That do they want to own U.S. stocks or whatever, or do they want to own national things that are in their region, whether that's cryptos that are favored in their communities or it's domestic equities. So I think we're going to see a transition from the monster rally of FANGs and US tech and all the great those big companies from like 2010 to 2020. Not that they're not going to go up, they're just going to underperform versus everything else, because the rest of the world is like, okay, well, we trade enough amongst each other. We don't really need to buy all this American stuff. We could buy Japanese stuff or Korean stuff or Chinese stuff, right? I think that's the narrative. Yeah, global stuff, anything, everything else.
Yeah.
So let me know what you guys think. There's no right or wrong answer. There is a lot of speculation on what could be happening. Long term, I always remain quite bullish on Bitcoin and crypto, obviously, but it is a very speculative situation right now of what's happening in the East. Now, something that is happening in the West that we can say, and this is from Bitwise asset manager Matt Hogan, he expressed optimism about the digital market. This was over on Scott Melker's show over on his channel. So according to him, he said the next bull cycle for the crypto market will be unprecedented. He said this 4-year cycle is going to be the biggest cycle yet in terms of user adoption, in terms of aggregate market cap increase, in terms of almost all of the things that we actually care about. It's not going to be perfectly up and to the right. Of course, we're going to have our ups, we're going to have our downs, we're going to have our pumps and our dumps, right? And he also says regulation, he's bullish on it, right? And it is a double-edged sword. Regulation is going to make some things difficult, potentially at first, right? What does the U.S. tend to do? They tend to over-regulate, right? That's pretty much all the time, right? They overdo it, and then they pull back a little bit. But ultimately, it's going to send those signals to these big hedge funds, and that's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for that clarity. So he goes on to say, the reason I'm so excited is because I know that the technological breakthrough that it's going to drive this next bull market is going to be amazing. It's going to be bigger than NFTs, DeFi, and stablecoins, and I would argue bigger from a real-world adoption standpoint. What is he talking about? He's talking about the scalability of layer 2 epochs. He says, last time we tried to go mainstream, this was about, 2.5 years ago in 2020, roughly. What happened? Well, the system broke, right? People were going crazy on Uniswap, paying $200 in gas fees. He says you cannot go mainstream with people paying $200 to do transactions. He says, but lately, you've noticed that the fees were around $3. And now with these layer 2s, they're going down to $1.50, maybe down to even 12 cents soon. And by the end of this year, he says the Ethereum proposal 4844 could make it down to a fraction of a penny. Fraction of a penny, right? So he says the things you can do when it's effectively free to use a blockchain are so interesting and exciting. It allows you to get into the mainstream and use crypto in any major way that you could think possible. And this is how crypto actually penetrates the global system. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. I hope you are having an awesome day today. Let me know what you guys think about everything that's going on. Going to be an insane week for cryptocurrency. Make sure that you get subscribed, turn on that bell notification, and most importantly, go follow me on all my other socials as well. I've been posting over on Instagram, been posting on Facebook and all these other places, so check those out below. And if you do want to learn how to trade, guys, I think we're going to have some volatility coming up next week, so make sure you get subscribed. We're going to talk about that and follow and check out this video popping up right here, right now. Until next time, stay crypto, and of course, peace out.